Morning, Lou. Guys. Morning, Trent.
Morning.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Morning. How you doing?
Serious.
It's serious. Well, I don't know. How serious. We got some stuff to talk about. Here's a couple maps,
Agenda, if you will.
and we've got kind of an outline put together as
How's it
well.
going?
How you doing today?
Doing all right.
And Frank put an outline together to try to keep me focused on, because there's a lot of stuff to discuss. So, are we ready? Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. So, Roots subdivision. I'll give a little bit of, let me get my outline out so I can kind of stay on that one. A little bit of background that is not on this, on your sheet, but last spring, a property owner in Roots subdivision called and complained about sewage coming to the top of the ground. And it's in that low area that we've gotten complaints about in the past. Of course, when Root subdivision was built, they did not build storm sewers, just sanitary sewers. So, if you look on that Root map, there's a blue dashed line that goes down kind of through the middle of it. That is the storm sewer for Root subdivision. And what it is, it's an old clay main that was built in the early 1900s for ag drainage, and they're all trying to use that. So it's overloaded, and every time we get a big storm, water comes up kind of right here in the middle. It blows up on top of people's, and it's been the township gets involved every time we get a big rain, and they call us. Of course, we really, it's not maintained by anyone, so it's kind of a private tile. Well, in the spring of '25, we got a big rain, and sewage actually came out of it on top of this one of this landowner, a couple landowners' property. So they called us, and I'm like, well, it's really not ours to maintain. Called the health department. Health department got involved. And from the history of the area, and we did some checking, and it's coming from the houses on the north side of County Road 144. They're all on private septic systems. So, working with the health department, I said, well, we have this collection system for Root, and to resolve the issue, potentially we could tie, if we could figure out what homes are the problem, into our collection system for Root. Check with the EPA, and they said no, because we're actually exceeding our flows as it is. So fast forward, of course, I'll jump back to this layout then. So, of course, the sanitary sewers collection lines, as well as the treatment plant and Root Addition, are the county commissioner's responsibility, maintenance, upkeep. And of course, I do that. We do that for the commissioners to maintain and sample the effluent from the treatment plant and maintain the collection system. So, so that's county. And as you can see, we're having some inflow problems of rainwater, and the commissioners had paid for a study that we can discuss in a little bit of kind of the target areas where we think that water's coming from. But as you can see, our design flow is 33,000 gallons per day. Average flow for the year is 50,000 gallons. Most of that is coming from rainfall events. So they will not let us connect these additional homes because of that. And that's where the I&I is coming in. Of course, we have a
So
study.
they won't allow the homes on County Road 144.
They will not allow
Tie
any
into the road.
additional homes on
And,
County Road.
and matter from where?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've had some meetings, and Joe was at the last one, to discuss as a county, what direction, we think we need to go. Well, I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, this is a system that is owned and operated by the commissioners. I probably need to have a discussion with them to lay out all of the facts and get some, direction of how you wanna see us proceed. So, currently, the plant and collection system as it is today, we are not, under any type of violations from the EPA to do anything as a county. They just did an inspection, it went well, they know that we're exceeding design flows, it's not causing any problems, all of our, tests come back good, we're not exceeding anything. But, moving forward, do we want to look at, so keep in mind also the plant was built in 1969, so it's nearing the end of its useful life. But we may be able to get another 20 years out of it. We just put some money in it and worked on some, tanks, and we've got a little bit of work to do on the sand filter system. But it's all stuff that we can handle in-house and fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, it sounds, just me listening, it sounds like it's been well maintained
Yeah.
over the years.
Yep.
To the extent that everything is just fine with the
Yeah.
EPA and everything.
And we can continue to do that and be good for, I don't know for sure, but be good for another 20 years. But I guess, the question comes up though, do we want to look at, first of all, working on the I&I, which I think we need to do. And I'm getting some quotes. The next step on that would be some smoke testing to try to figure out where this, rainwater is getting into the system. If you can see from our map there, we have relined all of those, or most of those collection lines, with a PVC liner, so it's not coming in from joints between the collection system. And the way that the rainwater, the way the flow spikes right after a rain, it's gotta be direct connection from homeowners, either downspouts, basements, so. And a smoke test will identify those areas. So we're gonna get some quotes on that, and we can talk about that at a later date. I had discussions in with the EPA about potentially increasing the capacity of the plant, to accept these additional homes. And they had indicated to me that their recommendation would be to, not allow the county to have a, NPDES or a discharge permit. They would recommend that we pump it to the city of Kidd, to eliminate a discharge, in the side of the river that close to another discharge. So, if we were to look at that, that would be the direction they would want us to go as a county. There's some other things in play right now too. So I talked to Wessler Engineering, I'm not doing real good about following my outline here, but talked to Wessler Engineering. They've done similar stuff, and they would recommend doing a, study that then could be presented to the EPA of direction that we would go if we were to replace the plant with a lift station. They said right now is a real good time because there's additional money for, regionalization. And they said this project would score very well for a grant like that. Well, it's not a grant, it's principal forgiveness, which is a grant they don't call a grant. So now may be the time, if we were looking at doing this, to do it because of that additional money for regionalization. If we were to replace it with a lift station, it would also open up a lot more of opportunities for surrounding homes to connect to it, as well as they've looked at potentially developing, the property adjacent, but there's no room for sewage, so potentially open up future development as well.
So in the pump station,
Mhm.
you gotta have permission from whoever we're pumping it to.
Yeah, I've had conversations with the city of Kenton, and they would accept it. Of course, we'd have to work out, you know, who's gonna own it then, who gets the fees, you know, cause we're collecting, fees from all the landowners out there now.
We're collecting fees, but we would then pay the city of Kenton,
We'd have to pay, yes.
or
a
whoever's
usage fee.
accepting it.
Yes.
That they're the nearest and they're.
Yeah,
most
yeah,
logical.
yeah. So I guess, did I miss anything? I was kinda all over the place, and I tried to do this to not go all over the place, but.
Yeah.
I guess right now I'm looking for direction. You have to make a decision today. If you wanna think about it, we can revisit it, cause, you know, what do we want to just say, you know what, roof subdivision is fine. We're just gonna continue doing what we're doing. That would then force the health department to go to these landowners and try to find a solution individually with them. The EPA said, because these lots are less than 2 acres, they have to get a permit through the EPA, a discharge permit. They would like to see them pump to the city of Kenton individually, which is gonna create problems. If enough of these homes are, if they find that enough of these homes do not have operational systems, and they're looking at doing multiple EPA discharge permits, the EPA may turn around and say, commissioners, you have a problem here, you have to resolve it, which we're gonna end up back to where we're at now. Just some things to think about. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of different scenarios that could come into play.
On Whistler Engineering,
Mm-hmm.
You've been in contact with them.
Yes.
What's the cost, do you think? I mean, I don't know if you have it all, and if you don't, I'm just.
I did, so, good question. So to do the study, depends on how, complex you want them to do. Which I said, you know, let's do surrounding areas, let's do a full study. They said 30 to 40,000. That is going to include estimates for construction. There'll be a lot of information that we could then use as a community to either present to the EPA at that point. The EPA then will reply, yeah, this looks like a good plan. This is the money that would be available for grants to do the construction. Yeah.
I'm just gonna speak for myself, for $30,000-$40,000, that gives us some time with the EPA. Plus that gives us,
Yeah.
the plan is in excellent working order, so it could last.
Well, that's what so
You know,
we're not
under the gun.
We're not in any directive by the EPA. I wanna point that out. The commissioners plant their piece in this is fine. There's the homes that surround it are not, and those are under the health department, so.
So their option on those houses would be to go to the health department?
Well, the health department is going to have to issue a letter to them saying, we're having this problem. Prove to us you have a working on-site septic system. And if not, then they're gonna be directed to comply with an on-site septic system. Then that takes us to, their lot size isn't big enough for an on-site septic system, so they have to get a variance to do that. And I think that's when the EPA gets involved, because there's required permit through the EPA because of the variance through the health department. And if there's enough of those, then the EPA potentially could go, because that's what they did on the south side of town, I don't remember that or not, but there were a lot of homeowners, a lot of landowners in there that did not have, on-site septic systems that were working, so the EPA issues a notice of violation to the county commissioners and says, fix this problem. So potentially it could come, that's what I'm saying, it could come back around, and we could wait, let the health department do their job of working through, which landowners do not have a system. If they find it's just one, it's not a big problem. If they find there's multiple ones, then it becomes more of a community problem. And potentially could come back around to you guys.
Probably most of those houses on 144 were built when, before root addition?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah,
And some of them were probably before,
Yeah.
some of them are old farmhouses,
Yep. So
And
they
there's
would
one
have
house
whole,
on the
whole
hill.
systems in there anyway.
a lot of them are 60s ranch style houses, looks like.
and probably don't have
So
a
they
leach.
were probably built on 144 before root addition.
Yeah. If you look at the aerial then that I attached, you can see the homes that we're talking about, the outliers are the ones on the north side of 144. And there's 25 of those. And then I have south of County Road 144, that'd be those couple south of the east of root addition, but then also the ones down along 179.
What about,
And there's about 80 in root.
what about 309? Some of the
Well,
houses along there.
Yeah, and I didn't go up that far, but
There's one up there, there's about 5 or 6, looks like at least.
So on the, back to Westler,
yeah,
if we chose to go with them just to get a preliminary, kind of give us a ballpark,
yeah,
what we may get into, what we may not get into.
Yeah.
For us, everything's working fine, that's the
Right.
main thing.
yeah,
Regrettably, the people on the other side of 144, they have a problem.
yeah,
I get that.
yeah.
So they would look at different options or just one option when they do the engineering study?
They would look at different options, and I can, if you're leaning that direction, I can have Ben come in. Of course, he'll wanna do an agreement,
Right.
and in that agreement, you'll lay out exactly what you want to do.
I'm just, so we're not pigeonholed into one area.
Yeah,
And in my opinion, because we've, done some things before with Westler, I think that the dollar value seems to be in line,
yeah.
so.
I mean, I can line up a meeting and, Westler, have them come in, and we can they can go over the options to include in the agreement. But he said like a full detailed agreement would be 30, he said if you wanted to do less detailed, it could be down around 10,000, so.
Well, if you're gonna do it, then
That's what I thought, yeah.
just do it right, and that way
Yeah.
you have more than one option to go with.
Yeah. So if you're kinda leaning that direction, I'll have him come in and sit down with you guys, and you guys can.
I think that's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
the right way to do it.
Yeah, okay. The nice thing about, moving forward and doing something that will open up potential growth in that area, they've looked at it in the past. We've got a housing shortage, and it's a good area to potentially look at building more, so, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, my thing is, you're not knocking on our door today because the plan is
Yeah,
in perfect working order.
Yep.
So I applaud you guys for doing everything like that.
Yep.
So, but that also gives us options to see what we can do possibly down the road.
okay. Well, I'll schedule a meeting then to come in, and we can talk about that study, and then ultimately the agreement will be between you and them, so.
So that study also include smoking those houses?
No, that's separate. Yeah. So I'm getting quotes on that. We do have money in that fund.
Okay.
And I'll try to get it paid for through that roof addition, the collection, because it has to do with the existing collection system, and those landowners are paying into that. So I'll try to pay for that. But I'll come back in, because that's gonna involve sending notices to landowners that we're gonna be smoke testing.
And again, that would detect if any of them are, putting,
Stormwater.
Stormwater.
Yeah.
So.
And I've got that, did you bring?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yep.
Trent's got that study, and they've identified 2 areas that like exceed the average flow by like 25 times. Like within 15 minutes, or it's fairly close.
Yeah, with on your map there, what we're talking about is manhole number 4, which is between Deborah and Barbara, kind of in the middle there. And then manhole 8, which is just along what I'm gonna call it the west side of Laura. So manhole 8, just for example, on a rain event, call it a 1/2 of an inch, it increases the flow in the system 25 times. And then obviously that changes with, the rain, quantity. And then manhole 4, same event, a half-inch rain, let's say 20-time increase. So,
And that was the worst area. Of course, they studied all the manholes, but that was the worst area. And it happens very quick, like it's a direct connection, either,
downspouts,
Downspouts
sump
or-
pumps.
yeah.
So if we did the other study, smoking,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you force someone to fix that problem? with the
Well,
resident?
yeah, a little bit of history, so 20 years ago, maybe a little over that, we did this same thing. And did a smoke test, and we went from home to home and did an inspection. We made them disconnect their sump pumps to the sanitary sewer. As soon as we left, guess what they did?
Took it right back in.
But it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I said as soon as we left, it didn't happen overnight. It was pretty good for a while and then has gotten worse and it's getting pretty bad now. So I think,
So they plugged them all back in, probably.
Yeah.
Or put that additional where
or
there
put
wasn't.
additional where there wasn't, yeah.
Is there,
So I asked the EPA, what, if they would help us any enforcing that? And their reply was, it's up to you. So, the answer is
always
no.
up
Yeah, but, I think we need to, because of, obvious data that we've got, we need to try to
well, are there
address it
any,
again.
are there any existing, when the grid addition was put in,
Mm-hmm.
they had certain rules or regulations?
Yeah, and there wasn't very many. I'm not sure why the county and township accepted it as it was constructed, but there's a lot of them that were constructed back at that time that the county and township accepted. I mean, they should have been made to put a storm sewer, because in these landowners' defense, they don't have anywhere else to go with their stormwater, except for on top of the ground. So they use the sanitary sewer, because that's the closest thing that they've got.
There's been petition discussed as well, right?
Yeah, we had a meeting with all of the landowners, when Mike was still here, in Vets Hall, about, because there's, these landowners that live along this blue dash line have the problems. Everyone else is on higher ground, and they don't have the same problem. So these landowners, so we had a public meeting to discuss potentially, the only way that the county, the prosecutor and that we determined, and commissioners at the time, the only way the county could get involved is if they would file a petition to construct new storm sewers. Well, believe it or not, there was 4 or 5 that were all for it, and everyone else at the meeting said, I don't have a problem. So it never went anywhere. So, I'm sure this will continue to keep coming around, because every spring when we start getting rains, it comes back up again, but.
It'll just keep getting worse.
Yeah.
So the system we have now is okay, but overloaded, basically.
Yeah.
EPA's not moved yet. So if we could lessen the inflow
Yes.
from sump pumps and spouting,
Yep.
and it could last longer, or it could fail tomorrow.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Potentially, if we would get the inflow out, stormwater, we potentially could prove that we had the capacity to accept some of these homes and not have to do any technical upgrades. But it's gonna take, more, we've gotta get the inflow out and then have, statistical data, to show that our flows are less than what our design flows are, to be able to do that, and that's gonna take years to do.
How many flow meters do you have?
We've got one.
Just the one, okay.
Yep. Yep, and that's fairly new, in the last couple of years, we put a new flow meter in up there, so. Okay, so I will contact, Westler and schedule a meeting to come in to discuss this, this study.
That gives us some options, but like I
Right.
said, plant's running fine, so
Yeah,
it's not,
and I wanted to point that out, that, you know, as far as the EPA is concerned, we're good, and root addition. This would
And that's
be,
important.
this would be to potentially look at improvements to accept. And to allow for some, future development or growth in that area.
Say that would allow,
And I know, you know, we're short on houses, and this would be a great spot.
Great opportunity.
Yeah, so, okay.
I appreciate it.
Yep, we will be back in then, so, and I'll work on this other, choice one did the other study, so they're getting me some numbers and some recommendations on smoke tests and stuff. One of the questions I had, I have not been involved in the smoke test, but wanna make sure that if there's any direct connections like into basements, how that works, cause
well, the city has done them.
they have, yeah.
You'll have smoke coming out the windows.
Right, yeah, I wanna make sure that we're not gonna have to cover damages because of it, so I don't know how that works exactly, so I'm looking for some of those answers. I know I've had some discussions, individually, but, Hardin. And I got an email, I think I sent it up, to see what do you, as a commissioners, how do you want me to, I guess the group's kind of looking for a reply, about the easement that we're talking about. I don't know if you want me to schedule a meeting, I know we have, seems like we have plenty of meetings, but, and we have had plenty of meetings on this, I don't know if you want me to have Hardin to come back in, because ultimately, it's between you guys and them on how we're gonna cover this or proceed, so. Or if you want me to report back to them.
I guess for me, because the one email stated that, not knowing the final cost,
Yep.
it's kinda hard to make
Yeah.
a true, so.
Yeah, so ultimately to date, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like of that 75,000 that was sent up there, 15 of it is spoken for.
Yeah, for the engineering part of it.
For engineering part of it. So there's another 60 set in there.
Yeah.
Westler's a little concerned, they had that additional, for contingency construction. Cause we don't really know where that number's gonna come in at. They had that number a lot higher, but then after talking to local contractors, they scaled it way back, cause they're used to not working in Hardin County, and we get work done fairly cheap in Hardin County. Of course, Richard is gonna plan on bidding on it, and he's gonna do, for the community, he's gonna do what he can, so. So they're a little nervous of saying that there's any money left. I think those numbers are gonna come in real good, and I think there's gonna be money left in that to cover this. But we have to have an easement secured before we can bid the construction part of it. Cause we don't have an easement, then we don't have anywhere to build. So, we gotta do this easement first before we can bid it and know how much of that 75 is gonna be left.
Yeah, I guess I'm for, I guess we would purchase the easement,
Yes.
but we've already given them 75,000.
Right, which you may get back 60 of it, potentially, depending on where
So
that.
why don't we pay for that out of the, what's, that 75, seems to me there's room to
Okay.
pay for
I'll
the
go back to
easement.
them and say, pay for it out of the 75, if anything else comes up, we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
Which that would make sense, and then if construction and dollars come out, where we could discuss that.
Right, cause that way, instead of us
I don't want,
contributing more than getting it back, that doesn't make sense.
That's not right.
because I guess I wanna be careful not to give us a second pot of money.
Right, yeah.
Unless it's
Yeah.
truly
Okay.
needed, don't have a problem with that, but if they're, would have to give us money back, then it's kinda,
So
I give you the second pot.
Just to make sure I'm clear, I will go back to them and say, pay for that out of the original. And once you bid it,
Then we can see what
then we
actually,
can see where we're at, and we can talk about it This, okay, alright, that makes sense, yeah. I think that'll be, I think that'll be definitely.
Keeps everything a lot cleaner on our
Yep.
end for the office.
And what we'll probably do as far as the easement, we'll go ahead and get, approval on a purchase price and stuff. But we don't necessarily need to file it until we make sure that the project's going to be constructed.
Right.
So we'll have a purchase agreement that, upfront, dollar amount and everything, but we won't have to pay that until we actually have to secure the easement anyway, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right,
Thank you, fellas.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Please convey our
Very good.
appreciation to everybody out at the
Yeah.
garage for everything they've done.
Yeah, will,
It's been a very long winter,
yep,
so they've done an excellent job, so.
yeah.
So we went with a little bit different, blower.
Yeah, so they decided, I think when I came up here, I forget, it was a 72 maybe?
I think, yeah, it went to what, 68 or something?
Yeah, so I talked to my, guys that worked up here, they thought there were some areas that were pretty tight, and they thought for mobility around the square, the 68 would work better, so it saved a little bit of money too, but, yeah. Okay, we, got the PO the other day, so we sent that on, so we'll be getting that in here fairly soon, and thank you, yeah, I think it'll be good.
So thank you guys.
I think it'll be a lot nicer not have that snow stacked right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Make it so much quicker.
Yep.
It'll be,
Yeah,
it'll
it'll be
be
good,
nice.
yeah. Okay,
See you guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
I wasn't planning on billing you for that either that time, so. I wasn't planning on billing you for that time up there either, so,
Okay,
especially since we did this other deal, so,
alright,
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Take care.
guess how many houses in the road addition, or lots?
Did you count them up?
Yeah.
50,
99,
99.
and then you add, they're all numbered, 3 different. The first build was 67 lots. Second build was, I mentioned that's where EPA stopped them at 100, cause they're not allowed to build anymore, and add on to that system.
So
They stopped at 99.
They stopped at 99.
Cause they still have more land, they could've
Yeah,
built
they,
a 4th edition,
I was thinking that there could have been more.
but they weren't allowed to build, they still have another 26 acres, remember? South of there, that's just field, that they, I'm sure at one point we're gonna build more. And
So-
that
so-
doesn't count the acreage or the houses. If you add in on 144, 179, and 309,
How many is that?
yeah, a bunch. 'Cause once you get one house on that system, they're all gonna want on.
They're all pumped up.
But that would goes, I don't know if you'd have to count 179 or 144, but the houses across from them where the road addition is, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 144 that they're within, probably draining into those road addition. There's another, probably 12 that go on out 144 to 179. And then if you go on 309, it's right another 12, 6. You'd be adding 36 more
On top of all.
on top of a system. They're probably draining in there now, or some of them are. Hard rains. I guess you either lower the flow and just maintain, or you're gonna build a huge system and pump it to the city. And if there's money available, DPA's not yet demanding that. That's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's very one clear cut decision. I mean, it's,
Well, we
it-
can't,
it- it's like a domino, you tip one over, like there's gonna be a few others tip over too.
at some point, the EPA will come to the county to fix it. Then you're out of a lot of choices. Usually when the EPA asks you to fix something, or tell you to fix something, they'll loan you interest-free the money to do it, but unless you're, well, either way. If you incorporate, then you're the city, they would have to, their new package plan or whatever, it's probably not large enough to take on 150 more houses.
No, I would say that it's,
And then if Myers Edition wants to jump in on,
and let's face it, you might as well count on it, because if one does, the other one's.
you're gonna pump right by Myers Edition
So,
into the city.
yeah.
They're all on wells.
In Myers.
I think some of them share wells, but pretty much every other house, most houses have their own well.
So which one is the oldest edition, isn't it Meyer?
Yes, yes, Myers was put in the early sixties.
Yeah, yeah.
Road addition was seventies, I think, early seventies, but you say,
I was thinking maybe late sixties.
maybe late sixties. Probably says, I think Luke said at one point that county road was that was relocated. It says County Road 144 was relocated in 1986. That was when they put the curve, it used to just shoot off 309. 140, they put the stop sign in the
Yeah.
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plan out there, road addition was constructed in 1969, that's what Luke had said.
And I would imagine Meyer was probably 61, 62.
Yeah, probably. 'Cause when we first come to town,
When did you first come to town?
well, first we came in town, but when we first moved out on Lydia Lane, that was 69, I think, something like that. No, yeah, would have been about 69. And we were Dad and Mom were the second owners. So the house was built, the lady lived there, and sold it to when we came up to town. And we were Lydia Lane, which is the last road built in Myers.
So, Union Lake is the last road as you're going east?
No, the last road, Lydia Lane's towards the cemetery.
Okay.
And that was the last road in that Myers edition. Put in. And we were one of the last, the house Dad bought, Mom was one of the last houses built on Lydia Lane. Because they kinda come around from behind the back and kinda build until they got to 209. So we're one of the last. There's been a house, a couple of them built in the 80s out there on vacant lots. But I think that every lot's full now, so.
No, that's her profession.
That's their profession. We've done the same thing before. So,
That way we get a true understanding of what's going on. Morning, Mike.
Dennis is good, isn't he?
Yeah, very good.
He's very
Yeah, we've got some trips planned this year already. Here in the office.
Probably better not have another.
Yep, well, happy for you, though.
Okay, thank you.
They've been working on the lights out there. Getting all the concrete poured for.
It'll be nice.
Yep.
It'll be nice. forward to serve.
Absolutely.
How many was it?
36, I think we got 10 total. 10 or 12.
Maybe 12, 3 on each side.
Yeah, it could be. So,
No, I think I can use,
yeah.
and bring back the flavor of what
Yeah.
else was.
We need, one of those, Morse code receivers and senders. Cause we're hearing aids and we can't hear.
Oh.
Or tap on the desk.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple up at the museum.
That would be nice.
We talked about this projector screen. Richard getting the bid, so I get a new one that's motorized.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know if I told you that or not. I had trouble getting it up for the 250 talk over here.
Yeah.
I said, well, just get one motorized. Cause it was down, it was stuck down and we wanted all the lights to be shown.
What would be nice too is to have a projector up in the ceiling to point down to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was one of the hooks on the other side of this wall. They can still put it back up and use it, but I think the little gears in there are stripped or something. People putting it up and down all the time. Once it's down, it doesn't wanna go back up.
No, I agree, we probably need a little bit different system for
Yeah.
presentations over there.
Most of them anymore, they have a little motor on them and they just,
Yeah.
you can put them up or down.
And the same thing, have a projector pointed down. click down.
Yeah.
They're not having a meeting or anything over there, are they? searched out there, I didn't see nothing.
Okay. I figured if the commissioners were going, they'd be in there already, but you never know.
Find some seats. Yep, Olivia is coming, who else is on the hub? You'll find a seat, Tyler. Ladies, you can go in there and find a seat if you'd like around the table. Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Morning.
Morning. Morning.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks.
Well, I.
You need a map?
Yeah,
Alright.
I like how it's.
Yeah, I like that,
broken down.
yep. It's definitely easier to read and understand.
Morning. Morning.
Yes.
I can be back here if there's anything else.
Oh, I can go
Someone's
sit
gonna check
there.
the hot seats up
I'm
front.
more than happy
Oh,
to
the
sit
hot
back
seats
there.
up front,
If
maybe
there's
the two
anything
judges.
else.
Yeah.
I think the judges should do it, yeah, the judges could sit up front, that'd be good for you.
Cause Tyler, you leave, then that means we can.
Okay. I moved. Morning.
If I need reference, I need to be able to, get information from my brain here inside me.
Tori, is that everybody?
Is that everybody, hub people? Is this all of you on the hub?
Was Judge Tudor coming or no?
He said he was going to attempt it, but he had a full docket, so.
I would say he and Stacy would be the last two from what I understand.
I don't believe she responded.
She did not, but he said he
She-
was booked
yeah,
and he
yeah.
would try if he could.
Alright, well, it's 11 o'clock and we'll get started with the meeting. The reason why we're here is to get the hub together, figure out the process and everything else. I had a request from Judge Christopher to go first because of his docket upstairs.
Yeah, I have an 11 o'clock hearing and an 11:30 hearings, and this was set, of course, from 11 to noon, so I asked if I could kind of go out of order and go first. First of all, I do have a question of whether the hub is actually a legal entity or not. The local corrections planning board attempted to establish a hub according to the minutes. I question whether or not that particular entity has any legal authority to do so. And I don't know if the commissioners ever did a formal resolution to establish the hub. And I would request that if it's never been formally established, because we have taken some action, that the commissioners pass a resolution ratifying any action that has been taken by the hub up to this point. And Then I want to address the hub itself, which is the main point of this meeting, as I understand it. First of all, the hub is dysfunctional, to say the least. No one wants to accept responsibility for it, and no one wants to take the time to administer this entity for the first 6 to 9 months. Everybody appeared to think that Olivia was in charge of it, expected Olivia to do everything, do all the work, schedule all the meetings, prepare all the notices and minutes. She is a part-time employee who already has a full-time job, and after a while, and I take responsibility for this, I put an end to that. I said, look, that's not her job. She can't do it, and I won't allow for her to have it put off on her. So at that point, it all fell on Tori. And Tori is also a person with a full-time job and full-time responsibilities. I've worked with both of these women. I find both of them to be exceptionally intelligent, capable, and efficient. But they both have full-time duties other than doing all the work for the hub. And one of the big problems with the hub is that, frankly, no one wants to assume responsibility for all the work. So that's reason number one that I believe it's dysfunctional. Number two is it has worked to be impossible to schedule meetings. Today is a prime example. I have 2 hearings scheduled at this time. I'm supposed to be at a hearing right now. Judge Tudor's not here because of his docket. It's been almost impossible to get these hearings scheduled, get quorums here. Let me give you a couple examples. After the last Community Corrections Board meeting, it was requested that whatever hub meetings were present, or members were present, stay for conversation about the problems with the hub. Judge had to leave. I'm not faulting the judge. She's just like me. She has hearings. You can't have a hearing without a judge there. She had to go, leave early. Now Crystal and Amy did stay, but you know, it's a prime example of the difficulties in scheduling these meetings. In December, there was a request for funds to bring in a new treatment provider in Hardin County. It's December, it was Christmas time. Unfortunately, there was a deadline to get that request approved. That was a request for about $60,000. In Hardin County, that's a significant amount of money. And time was of the essence because there was a deadline to meet for that submission. Tori was left with the unfortunate task of trying to schedule that meeting to get members of the hub together and sufficient members to have a quorum. She couldn't do so. It was, none of the commissioners were in. We were you know, I'm not faulting you guys. Literally, no one was in the courthouse. I mean, it was almost Christmas time. So I was here. She was looking for direction. I said, try to get everybody on the phone. Couldn't even get a quorum of people on the phone. So I directed her to send out emails explaining what the problem was, what we needed to do. The short email, all it required was a simple vote, yes or no back. It would take like 3 to 5 minutes of somebody's time. We did get a quorum. I'm not going to get into the specifics of meetings and so on. There was no real meeting, but we got a quorum back and did get the vote and get the deadline met. Nevertheless, one of the hub members sent an email being very upset that they were bothered on their Christmas vacation to perform this 3 to 5 minute task. And
If
there was
you're
just no
talking
other
about
way
my
to do it.
email,
I'm
that
talking
wasn't the
about your
purpose.
email. We're gonna get to that. That's just a sampling of the difficulties in scheduling meetings. On top of that, the hub has a distinct lack of expertise. The members of the hub in general lack any training, education, or experience in mental health or addiction treatment, yet these are the people that we are expecting or asking to make decisions on whether to allocate funds specifically for those purposes. Judge Tudor, Santo, and I are lawyers. You know, you're a former businessman. We've got law enforcement. None of them have training. There are some people that we rely on, like Crystal, Amy, and Olivia, but by and large, the people making the decisions aren't properly and professionally trained to make those decisions. Third, there is an inherent conflict of interest in the hub. The people on the hub generally are people who are requesting funds either for their courts or their entity, like the sheriff, or funds that are being requested for an entity that will benefit their office. Prime example, us judges. You know, we're voting on these hub funds, and almost all of the funds that have been requested have been either for our treatment courts or for providers that provide things primarily or exclusively for our treatment courts. That is a inherent conflict of interest. I want money, oh yes, I vote yes to give me money. That's problematic. Fourth, it has been a cause of discord. You know, there was an email, everything we send, the judge's email was circulated to all the hub members. It's about the opioid stuff. Michelle, who's here, has been up to my office a number of times looking for information on the opioid stuff, as I understand it. I'm not faulting her, it's her right, and the right of any citizen, has made a public records request concerning the opioid funds. That means the email is open to public disclosure. The email accused, I don't know who, but made accusations of secret meetings. That would be a violation of the law. And then there were the complaints about the Christmas vacation. This is not gonna look good in the public. I'm not faulting Michelle, but Michelle, you know, it's your right, you put stuff on Facebook. I mean, anything that she gets is probably gonna end up on Facebook. And it's gonna be all over Facebook, it'll be in the newspaper, on the radio, and that is going to cause friction between inter-office relationships, and it's going to make all the public office holders in this county look bad if they're complaining about 3 to 5 minutes of their time on Christmas, or accusing other members of the hub of having secret meetings. I'm not aware of any secret meetings. If there were, I was excluded also. If there were, it was wrong. I don't know anything about that. But the hub is problematic. It's slow because we can't get people scheduled. And then there's the conflict and the lack of expertise and all the other problems. So I am proposing that the hub, if it does actually legally exist, be dissolved. And if it doesn't exist, that it won't require a resolution. If it does, I'm asking you guys to do a resolution to resolve it. And I'm going to suggest that we follow the way that Allen County handles this, and that is that any requested funds be directed to the mental health board, where there are people trained to professionally review the requests, and then that they not make a decision, but make a recommendation to the county commissioners, you guys. The advantages of doing that are as follows. Number one, it will speed up the process. We're not gonna flounder around forever trying to get quorums and people who are busy and have different schedules together for a meeting. Number two, it will utilize the training, education, experience of the members of the mental health board, who are qualified to professionally evaluate the request. Number three, it will eliminate the inherent conflict of interest that we have on the current hub. And number four, it will place the ultimate decision in the hands of the appropriate entity. That's you guys, county commissioners, who were elected by the people of this county to make their financial decisions and handle their money. That's what you guys are here for. So I have people waiting, I have lawyers, they're court appointed, so they're on your nickel, waiting for me up there. As soon as I'm done with that hearing, assuming this meeting is going to go on for a while, I'm gonna make the next hearing wait a little bit so I can come down and try to check in, answer any questions about what I've said. Michelle, please don't be offended. You have every right to be here, to make the request, to record things. I'm not faulting anything you've done. I'm just saying, public officials need to keep that in mind. And I will try to respond to anything anybody has to say when I come back down. And if necessary, I'll go back up to that hearing and come back down after that.
So again, it's good, what we're trying to do is to come up with the thoughts and ideas as to what's going on. And, Judge Christopher laid that out on point of view. Are there other points of view as to what we should do the process?
Before we get there, to piggyback on Judge Christopher's statement, I guess, and I know he wasn't here at the meeting where our prosecutor opposes the mental health board, but even before we get to that, and I don't know, because this was when Judge Barrett was here, did anyone ever, since he feels the hub is not a legal entity, since Judge Christopher feels the hub is not a legal entity in its formation, did the prosecutor's office, were they ever requested to give us, or give you guys, or Judge Barrett, a legal opinion on that? Because I guess that would, if they come back and say it's not a legal entity, then we have a different situation than if they come back and say it is. And I will just refresh my memory, and I know Olivia and I talked about this years ago, I believe there was a resolution at some point. And I know I have some of them, I don't know if it's specifically what, but again, I think we're back to, if he's questioning this as a legal entity, which is interesting, because we've already made decisions and dispersed money, then I think the prosecutor's office, and I don't know, Fred, do you know that, because you were involved when Judge Barrett was here, when it was, do you know?
I know that, there was a meeting that was held with the county commissioners on March 8th, 2022. And it included, basically, Judge Barrett, Judge Grimsley, Judge Christopher, and a couple of their people with them. And basically at that time, the One Ohio entity was just getting started. And it was indicated from the paperwork that we received that what each county should do was develop a hub of group of people that would go and determine the needs for those particular counties, locations, wherever, and then report that need back to the commissioners who could report it accordingly. And so we asked in that meeting, thinking that the Community Corrections Board would be the best entity for that hub group, as other counties that appear were looking at doing the same thing, looking at their community corrections boards. And so we decided to approach the people in that meeting that day about doing this, and they agreed at that time to do it. They said maybe what we want to do is to break it down instead of the whole community corrections board, is to have like a subcommittee to work on this. And that was acceptable and was basically approved by those people at that meeting.
Well, since you said Judge Christopher was present, obviously since that time when he agreed, he's concluded that he doesn't think this is a legal entity, which if it's not, then he does have a point, so maybe we need Mr. Bailey to give a legal opinion on if this is a legal entity, and until we get that, I don't know if we can go any further to get that cleared up, unless everybody feels that March 22 meeting resolved it.
And Judge Christopher, in your absence, like we were talking about, if you recall, there was a meeting held between the commissioners and the judges, and you were included, March 18th of 2022. And we discussed forming a hub group.
Discussing forming one, doing a resolution or taking some act to actually form one officially, two different things. You know, after the Community Corrections Planning Board meeting, we talked about some of the problems, but that's different. Talking about problems or talking about doing something does not legally create it. There has to be a formal action of some sort. And I don't know what your minutes say, maybe that was done, I don't remember, but if it wasn't, that's problematic, and that's why, you know, we've been taking action here. I mean, we did this grant at Christmas time and so on. If it was not formally created, we need a resolution from you guys to ratify the actions taken by that entity up until this point.
So, just so clear, so that's your only concern about whether it's a legal entity versus do we need an opinion? What I was saying is, if there's a question of whether this is a real legal entity, do we need an opinion from the prosecutor's office? Are you just saying because there wasn't, you're not sure there was a
I don't know
resolution?
I don't know if they ever did a resolution or did anything to create it. I don't know. I've never gone through their minutes, I haven't been at all their meetings, I don't know.
Okay, okay. So you're not saying, even
I'm
if
not
they
saying
did
it's not a legal entity, I'm saying
Oh.
the minutes of the Community Corrections Board indicated, you know, let's do this hub, but that doesn't create it. Number one, I don't think they have the authority. Number two, they didn't pass any resolutions. And I don't know what the commissioners have done, if anything. I'm saying I'm ignorant of the facts.
Okay, that's good. Well, and I didn't bring my entire file, and I don't have it memorized, but I do know I have some resolutions creating this, and or I shouldn't say creating this, relating to this. I will be glad to share them with you, because that might save the problem. Otherwise, then you're saying, then they have to do resolution one, creating, and then kind of retroactively, approving everything retroactively, because that's what's the
Hopefully,
money that's
because-
already been dispersed.
If, and that's if, I don't know the answer, if it was never actually legally created, then the actions that have been taken, I hate to use the word illegal, but they were improper. They were without proper authority. So, and that's only if. And so I think we need to find out whether it was ever a legally created entity. And if so, that eliminates the need for you guys to do anything retroactive. If not, then, you guys need to do something, because ultimately, the fall back on you guys, you're in charge of the money, and if money was spent improperly, and you're, the people in charge of it, that's problematic for you guys.
Well, if they have to do resolution and approve retroactive, it was, I guess, and no one's brought this up before, the hub thought or believed that they were acting, I'll say legally. I know we don't have
We
a
did, I mean, all of us
documentation,
did.
so, yeah, we thought we were, and if maybe it was just an oversight that we didn't have an official resolution, so, I hate the word, I hate the thought, the language that the money was dispersed or
Apparent
spent
authority is not the
improperly.
same as actual
No,
authority.
I know, but I'm not sure that the money was spent improperly. I guess that's the language I'm not, but
No,
I get it.
without proper authority.
Without proper authority, I'll give you that. I don't know if that's true, but, well, that's an easy fix.
And I don't know if it's true, I'm just saying, this is something I thought of that I think may be a problem. Can we please check and find out if it is a problem and fix it if it is?
And then, okay, then we need Mr. Bailey, because he's all of our legal advisors.
Well, not if they did a resolution. or
Right,
something.
right, that's what I'm saying. If they didn't, then I think we need him. How do they can do a resolution adopting the hub, but then, right, how do we?
I think the request is basically to double check to see if that was done properly, and if it wasn't,
Then we need to do something to fix the problem,
to
cover people's behinds.
So, is that what everybody hears?
Yeah.
Okay.
expectation be that the hub remains, or what's the solution beyond that?
And that's the next question. We've talked about that. Knowing the fact that currently, and Judge Christopher's known that it seems to be dysfunctional. So what is a better alternative other than the current community corrections? What is a better alternative? What can we do to move forward?
Well, I would suggest we, first of all, if we're going that way, we need a meeting where all the people who are on the hub are present, so we can get everyone's input, cause if we're gonna do a vote, whether it goes to the mental health, whether it's just you guys, people present it to the commissioners, and I think that in all fairness.
And that's why we try to have everybody come here today.
I get it.
And, it's been, difficult to get everybody on board, just as Judge Christopher said, just as you said. We've seen the same thing too. And so we're needing to come to an understanding as to this group. What is your thoughts moving forward?
My thoughts are to dissolve. My thoughts and my opinion would be to dissolve the hub and find a more appropriate entity, whether it be the mental health board, whoever that is, to oversee the funds.
So, is there any other thoughts or suggestions?
My thoughts are, if the hub as current, going under the premise that it actually is real, is not interested in remaining, but we can create another hub that's in Hardin County only, that Hardin County people are making those decisions. And I think Mr. Bailey made that clear when we were here at the commissioners meeting a couple of weeks ago concerning that, when it was brought up about.
Do you have any ideas who that might be?
Well, I think that we have other providers, we could put it out there to providers to see if any of them wanna be on it. I concur with Judge Christopher that we as judges don't have training and expertise. However, in our position as judges, we have to deal with these agencies on a regular basis. We have to contract, our courts contract, our drug courts contract with them. So we do have some knowledge, and we have other people to go to who deal with these agencies to say, hey, is this entity somebody we wanna deal with? Do you know anything from other counties? Have you heard anything good or bad? So I think maybe we can widen the hub. If there's a question on whether funding for my court or his court or Judge Tudor's court is on the table, we abstain. He has a valid point. If you're coming in, to vote on money that's your court's asking for, you're gonna vote yes. I mean, I just think we need to stay in Hardin County, but that's, and we could, if we wanna create a separate board that I know some other counties have done with their stakeholders in their community, maybe that's the way to go and it takes it off.
I don't think the conflict of interest goes away, because the individuals able to request the funds would be the treatment providers. Because of the funds being used for those with substance use disorders, we have, like Lighthouse or Coleman participating on the hub, they're likely to be the ones requesting the funding. So I think we're back to that kind of conflict, which is why I think Allen County utilizes the mental health board, because of the fact that they oversee all of the treatment providers. They do end up being a neutral party, in the sense that they're able to then request to the mental health board for a review, because most of the requests coming through are by behavioral health providers. We only have 2 here right now, so ours is smaller, but I don't know how you would include those. We'd be back to the same conflict of interest in a lot of ways.
And if we dissolve the hub and we have someone else, I don't care who it is, if ultimately they're only making a recommendation instead of making the decision, then Mr. Bailey's concerns about Hardin County deciding is taken care of, because you guys are Hardin County. So as long as you're making the final decision, that is a non-issue. But you guys are just like the judges. You're not trained in this stuff. That's why I wanted somebody or some entity with appropriate expertise to at least review them and make recommendations to you guys.
And I wanna speak just for myself and for the rest of the commissioners, but quite frankly, you're right, we aren't trained to know all that either too. We have to rely on those people that are trained, that can make the best decisions for the utilization of the money that we have. And so, to utilize an entity that has that training, and then to verify that with their recommendations, it truly does affect and is 100% effective for Hardin County. And as long as that's brought forward to us, I think that is some of the things that we would anticipate seeing before we would approve or not approve an idea. Does that make sense? Or not?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
I guess for me, in the meantime, we need to go back in our archives and see what resolutions are there, so that we can actually see which way we go forward, if that makes sense. Any other comments?
Well, I would like to ask if we could ask our legal advisor to go back and look when the opioid settlement was originally done and when it was determined as to the funding that was gonna be the portion that's paid into the county and into the county it's paid into the order obviously, but the county commissioners having control to see what was their thoughts on who was gonna control it, or if a hub was to be set up on who could or should be on those hubs. Because that goes way back, and like I said, that was, Judge Barrett was here, and that's all I know, is that was started through there, but other than that, I don't know.
Well, Judge Barrett's major concern was that he controlled it as much as possible.
And that might be true. I'm hoping back then somebody at least knew that there was some direction from the state with the settlement money as to how the counties handle it after the money gets paid into the order and the commissioners control it. But I don't know that. That was all, I wasn't part of any of that, so I don't know.
My question would be, in the meantime, how are people able to access the funds that we do have? It's not just treatment providers can request it, not just court personnel, anyone is able to request that money. And so in the meantime, with this kind of ordeal, how are people able to access that money?
It hasn't been working.
Say that again? What'd you say?
It hasn't been working. It takes us forever to get a meeting set up, just a simple meeting. If we can get people together, we can make decisions, but it just.
I think we as commissioners need to talk with Brad Bailey, prosecutor, and see where we need to go from here and what is on record and what isn't. Correct it, and then go from there, meet again, or either there is a hub or it isn't a hub, or there's a hub of a different form. Sounds like several of the hub restrictions are causing part of the problem. And maybe there's two different, if I understand it, two different hubs, or there's one hub, but you handle two different pots of money. One's regional and one's local, is that right?
Well, what it is that the one hub would give suggestions for the utilization of local monies that we have that have been sent to Hardin County. And then also have input into the utilization of regional monies that goes to Region 17, of which we are one of 8 counties that are part of Region 17. So of that money, what goes to which entities? What does the hub suggest? What does the hub suggest for local? And the hub has been this group right here. So.
I was not in attendance.
Okay, we need to get with our prosecutor and ask, and we'll do research on resolutions. If if there was a resolution passed, we'll have a copy of it.
And that's my hope, that there was one actually passed. But if not, I think something needs to be done that,
Yeah, well, we can retroactive now, but I can't change before today if it hadn't been done. Other than we can go back and authorize that, but, if I understand right, the commissioners were given this by the state of Ohio, the opioid money, or authority to spend it.
The state of Ohio, through the opioid, the One Ohio entity, will distribute out monies to each locality and county.
and in defense of commissioners and everybody that's on the hub, and Fred can verify this because he's been my main source of information. When the first year or so, they kept changing the rules constantly of how you have to disperse it, who you can disperse it to, for what purposes. I mean, they just kept changing the rules constantly, which made it pretty hard to try to plan on how to handle it.
And that's true, all this started in early spring, or late, winter of '22, and it was '23 before they actually started moving forward with it. So there was issues at state level concerning the One Ohio.
And then somewhere along the line, there was some major lawsuit and everything was on hold for quite a long time.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that was with the state?
Yeah.
State was sued or not sued by outside lawyers?
The state One Ohio Foundation was.
So everybody was on hold for, and I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only, I'd like to comment about, in retort to Judge Christopher's comments about my email, but before I get there. Concerning meetings, yes, they are difficult. I think part of the problem is because of the time. I think for me, maybe for you too, probably for Judge Tudor too, the later in the day, like 3 o'clock would be better than when we do them at this hour, and I know that's when you guys meet, but, I think court slows down a little. At the December Community Corrections meeting, we set a January meeting for the hub. It was my understanding that the money that was being requested for the contract with the new agency out of Marion was gonna be the topic. Something happened in between there which precipitated the email vote, which I didn't know until the last commissioners meeting that I was present on how that came about. And then myself, Amy, and Crystal were the only 3 people who showed up for the January meeting for the hub. So that's what I was upset about, that one, we don't know, or I don't know how we got to the vote by email, now I know. And 2, we were the only 3 who never got any email or even verbal that the January meeting was canceled. And so I was asking for another meeting, and then there was obviously the conversations that took place, which I addressed at the last commissioners meeting, were pretty obvious from the minutes of the meeting that Judge Christopher was here and wanted to know if everything was on board for the mental health board to take over. And so there was obvious conversations outside of the hub or with whomever.
Those conversations happened after the Community Corrections Planning Board meeting when you left. You had a hearing, I'm not holding you for it, I'm in and out here today.
I understand.
But Crystal and Amy were here, Fred was here, I don't remember if you were the sheriff were here or not, Olivia was here, it was after we kind of went through a lot of this stuff, and the consensus was at that time that the hub wasn't working, and we need to find another way to do it.
I agree with you, I remember that part. I don't know anything about the mental health board, so somewhere, that's what I brought up last commissioners meeting that I was present, is where did that come from? But I think at this point, there's no point discussing this, because if our legal advisor says, hey, they could do a resolution, but we're not, the people on it, like you and I and Tudor are, it's a conflict and we're out of it and they have to pick other people, then that's gonna be up to them. So, but I just, and I will say this publicly, I understand every time I send an email or write an email to anybody, you have no control on who they disperse it to, and all of our emails are open to the public. And I don't know, I mean, anybody can go up to Mike Bacon's office and ask for a printout of how much money the county has got and where it's been dispersed. It's all public information, so I'm not sure what the concern of the public is, unless people are just finding out. Last week, in the Lima News, there was a half a sheet page, of Tammy Cologne making a presentation to the city council and explaining all that they did with their opioid money. So, I'm not sure why, but anyway, that's all I wanted to comment on. That there was conversations, whether you wanna call them secret or not, they were pretty obvious, cause somebody put it in writing, but I will go look for the I know I have a couple of resolutions that, I'm not sure if they relate only to the community correction boards or the hub, but I have an opioid file, so they're all in there.
If you would, bring those.
Yeah,
copies.
yeah,
Which we will do our own research here.
yeah.
So, I guess for now, is there any other questions or concerns or comments? Until we rectify if we have a hub or no hub, I guess conversation right now is a moot point till we figure that point out and we can move forward one way or the other. Unless we decide, figure out which way we need to go, then we can do the others, if that's fair enough for everybody, if that makes sense.
The only comment I would make in addition is we can't let a lot of moss grow.
No, no,
We need quick decisions.
That's exactly right.
We're going to do our research here very shortly.
Yeah.
So, if nothing else, I appreciate everyone's time. We're gonna try to rectify everything and make it one way or another a lot smoother process, because their money doesn't get spent because of everything. There's a lot of money sitting there that the state of Ohio has, through the pharmaceuticals and all that. You know, the money is safe, it stays in our treasury upstairs, Mike has a hold of it, it's not going away for nothing, because there's so many lines and stipulations to it that you just can't do it away. So that's the biggest problem, and I'm a novice on this, so it'd be different if you could actually use it for what everybody in this room figures you need it for, but you can't. So that's the problem with the state. But we will figure out on our end what we need to do, then we'll go from there. That's fair.
If errors were made, we'll get them corrected.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll move forward.
Yes. So I do appreciate everyone's time and concern on this issue, and we will get started with what we need to do to move forward. Or back, however you want to look at it. So, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
It is.
I would love that. Get us somebody in a little ice cream cart. Yeah?
I don't think we have to take more time, do we, Joe?
No, we'll get, Tori and Chris to start dating. And we can go from there.
Can I have that one back? That opioid file,
Yep,
please?
that's, you.
Yeah, it's the 2030, so.
The meeting's adjourned.